Hello, this is worked out problems of some of the review questions from the packet for the Algebra I FAST exam review. This comes from Palm Beach County, Florida. So this one asks, Camden went shopping for new sneakers at the store where he gets an employee discount. The equation P equals 1.07 times 0.8x can be used to calculate his total cost, where x represents the pre-tax cost of the sneakers. Then it asks what these various numbers represent. 0.8, again, without answer choices, I'll give the best description of what they represent. 0.8 is the discount. So it represents a 20% discount because you're retaining 0.2 of x, which is the pre-tax cost from the question. 1 is, I've written full amount. It also, by itself, it doesn't change the value. So what it does is, let's say you're trying to calculate the cost of a meal after tip, right? 20% tip. Then you'd have you'd multiply it by 1.2, right? So if you multiply it by 0.2, you'll get the amount of the tip. If you multiply it by 1.2, you'll get the amount of the meal plus the tip. So by itself, I'd say it represents the full amount without tax. And then 0.07 represents a 7% sales tax. A bank uses the equation B equals 850 times the quantity 1 plus 0.02 divided by 12, all raised to the 12t power, to represent a customer's balance after t years when the interest rate is compounded monthly. What does 12t represent? Well, this is A equals P times 1 plus R over N. Right, and blue is compound interest formula. So if they want 12t, then t is in years. So even without the compound interest, if they just said, what does 12t represent? If t is the number of years, then 12t is the number of months since he opened the account. Just to go over a few of these, 850 is how much he initially puts in the account. So a lot of times it's written as P for principal. And then 0.02 is the interest rate. And then 12 is, or N, is the number of times that it compounds per year, right? Because we're in T years. So then the NT is the number of months since the account was opened, right? So this, I'm not sure, how involved they're going to get with compound formulas. So far a lot of these are just identifying what either a variable or a number or an expression represent in the situation, right? They may give you, usually the first thing they'll do is they'll give you the principal, they'll give you the interest rate and the number of times compounded per year and the number of years, and say, well, what is in the account after 5 years, right? So what's A when t equals 5, and they have to give you the other values. What would be a little tougher is if you have to solve for one of these in an exponent, because you'd have to do that using logarithms. But this just asks, what does 12t represent? Well, t is in years, 12 months in a year. 12t is number of months after the account is set up. Tara jumps into a pool from a diving board. Her height in meters can be modeled with respect to time by the equation h equals 3 minus 16 t squared, where t is time in seconds. And they want to know what the number 3, what does the number 3 represent? And they give us answer choices. Height of the diving board, the time it took Tara to dive into the water, the time Tara was at 3 meters, and the height after t seconds. Two of these, I believe I wrote it verbatim, but two of these are a little, not unclear, just the time it took Tara to dive into the water. I take that to mean how many seconds before she hits the water. And then the time Tara was at 3 meters, I think, is how long does it take her to reach a height of 3 meters. In this case, 3 is the height of the diving board. And then, so you're taking your initial height, and then this would represent like your gravitational constant. Except that what's a little confusing is it says t in second. Our height is in meters, so it should be minus 9.8 per second squared, right? But they're not asking us to evaluate this. They're just saying, well, what is 3? As soon as t starts, meaning as soon as it's positive, the clock's running, t seconds, t1, 2, 3, her height's going down. So it's also a little misleading because usually you'll be jumping from a diving board up and then, dive down into the water, so that the height, in this case, it's more just like falling off the diving board. How long would it wants to know, if we want to know the time it takes her to hit the water, then our height is 0. So that's 16 t squared. I add that is equal to 3. So that t squared is equal to 3/16. T is equal to the square root of 3/16, which is about 0.43 seconds. So not long at all. But that's not what they're asking us. They're asking us, what does the 3 represent? Which is the height of the board. The time Tara was at 3 meters, she's only at 3 meters when she's standing at the diving board. So that one is 0. Again, these are not, some of these are not being asked by the question, but since it's in front of us, might be interesting to see. I'll try to first answer the question as written, and then maybe go into a little explanation, because I know the main thing is to get these right on the exam. The movement of a moving particle, or the movement of moving particles, is described by the equation r equals h times t squared over 2 minus 2vt minus 2c. Solve for v. Okay. Well, we don't really, let me move this a little bit. If it just wants me to solve for the variable, I don't need to know what this represents. I don't need to know that this is some kind of moving particle. I don't need to know we're not going to get a numerical answer for this. We're going to, if it says solve for v, it's going to be in terms of the other letters. So the other letters are still going to be in the equation. So what I want to do is isolate v. So I want the term with v in it to be by itself. So what I'm going to do is add that term to both sides. And I'll get 2vt plus r equals ht squared over 2, right? So this is gone, minus 2c. Solving for v, I will subtract r from both sides. These will cancel, and I'll get 2vt equals ht squared over 2 minus 2c minus r. Now I want to keep v. I want to keep v. I want to lose the 2t. So I'm going to show it here. And then what this is going to look like. What happens if I divide this fraction by 2t is these are multiplied together in the denominator. So 2's cancel, t's cancel, and v is equal to, this becomes ht squared over 2 times 2t is 4t. And then here the 2's cancel, and I get minus c over t minus r over 2t. So I've noticed a few questions like this where they ask solve for a given variable, and you know, you can't easily plug in numbers to do that, even if they give you answer choices, because you have to pick them, you know, several, and such that they're in a certain proportion. But it would be, you know, possible to eliminate some answer choices just by looking at them, you know, if we don't know exactly what's going on here. But we don't need to know what it's describing. If they give me the equation, if I see, same on the SAT, ACT, if they give me an equation and say solve for v, there may be a big paragraph setup, which we don't really need in order to solve the problem. Well, hopefully this helped, and I will be posting more very soon. I know that the test is coming up for you know, the school years 2023. If you have any questions, please post in the comments below, and thank you very much.